Before we dive in, there's something I need to share that could fundamentally shift how you engage with what's coming. In the video description, you'll discover digital resources I've developed through years of immersion in quantum theory, consciousness research, and understanding how reality constructs itself at the informational substrate. These aren't theory books. They're operational frameworks built from recognizing that reality functions through programmable information structures. Once you perceive these structures, you gain the capacity to rewrite them. If what unfolds in this conversation activates something within you, those resources will demonstrate exactly how to implement these principles within your unique circumstances. Implementation, not conceptualization. Look in the description when we're done. Let me tell you about an afternoon 6 months back that I still struggle to articulate fully, yet it fundamentally altered how I relate to what we label reality. I found myself in a Seattle coffee shop, observing a stranger at the adjacent table experiencing what looked like acute anxiety. His chest was heaving with shallow breaths. His fingers were trembling. He'd grab his phone, set it down moments later, then immediately reach for it again. The energetic field of panic surrounding him was so dense, I could practically perceive it as tangible substance, and something peculiar caught my awareness. Every person in that space was instinctively creating distance from him. Not dramatically, just incremental adjustments, repositioning their seats, relocating to different areas, establishing separation from whatever vibrational frequency he was transmitting. Here's what pulled my complete attention. His circumstances weren't dictating his state. His state was dictating his circumstances. I observed him checking his device, and within moments a message would arrive that intensified his distress even further. He'd release the phone, attempt to regulate his breathing, grab it once more. Another notification, escalating anxiety. This wasn't coincidental. It was patterned, systematic, like observing a software algorithm execute its designated loop. If internal state equals anxiety, then external reality generates anxiety-validating event. The cycle perpetuates, and in that instant, I recognized something profound. I'm witnessing someone executing programming they have no conscious awareness they're running. That recognition restructured everything about my perception. Because the moment you understand that reality functions as programmable information, as responsive code executing based on the signals consciousness broadcasts, your entire paradigm shifts. You're not a passive witness to some predetermined external universe. You're running information systems you never consciously authored, and those systems are constructing your lived experience moment by moment. Let me clarify precisely what I mean when I speak about code, because this transcends metaphorical language. I'm not suggesting reality resembles code. I'm stating that reality is information arranged in operational structures that execute according to definable principles, responding to specific inputs through predictable mechanisms, producing outputs that manifest as your tangible experience. That's what code is, and you exist simultaneously as both the architect and the end user, operating software that remains invisible to most people. This recognition transforms everything. When I reference reality operating through code, I'm addressing something concrete that quantum mechanics and information science have been demonstrating for generations. Though most individuals never bridge this knowledge to their actual existence. At the foundational stratum, what we identify as physical matter is information, not material objects containing information. Information that consciousness collapses into matter through particular modes of interaction. John Wheeler, The theoretical physicist who introduced the term black hole to our vocabulary devoted his final decades to what he termed it from bit. After 5 decades immersed in quantum mechanics, his fundamental conclusion was that physical reality, the it, emerges directly from information, the bit. Everything we perceive as solid, material, objective, represents information structured in patterns that consciousness translates into experienced phenomena. This isn't philosophical speculation. This reflects what the mathematical frameworks demonstrate. This aligns with experimental validation. Quantum theory confirms that information constitutes the bedrock beneath matter. Information determines material behavior. Alter the information substrate, you transform the material expression, not through gradual processes instantaneously at the velocity of observation itself. But here's where this becomes deeply uncomfortable for most individuals. If reality operates as information structured through code, and you're currently experiencing one particular reality configuration, what programming are you executing? And who authored that programming? The operating system you never knew was installed. Reflect on your previous 7 days. What percentage of your experiences qualified as genuinely novel, and what portion represented recycled patterns you've executed countless times? Identical conversational dynamics, identical emotional reactions, identical problems manifesting in superficially different packaging, identical relational patterns unfolding with different individuals. If you're completely honest, the majority of your existence consists of repetition, cyclical patterns, loops, executable code. You possess financial programming, unconscious rules and assumptions governing money that execute automatically, generating your economic reality. You carry relationship programming, behavioral patterns within intimate connections that run without deliberate selection, producing foreseeable results. You maintain health programming, convictions and practices surrounding your physical form that operate beneath conscious detection, determining which symptoms materialize and what restoration becomes accessible. You embody identity programming, foundational code defining who you are, your capabilities, your worthiness that processes every experience through its filtering structure. And here's what you must understand about code. It operates without regard for whether it serves your evolution. It simply executes. A computer infected with corrupted software doesn't evaluate whether that corruption harms the system and terminate its operation. The code runs because it's code. It executes according to its structural design. Your existence operates identically. The programming you're running, the vast majority absorbed unconsciously or inherited without consent, executes mechanically, constructing your reality regardless of whether that reality elevates you or disintegrates you. I'll share an illustration from my personal history that made this undeniable. Throughout years of my life, I maintained a consistent pattern with creative endeavors. I'd initiate something, experience genuine excitement, generate initial momentum, then reach a precise threshold where everything would systematically collapse. Collaborative partnerships would fracture, financial support would evaporate, technical obstacles would emerge seemingly from nowhere. This happened with such reliability that I began constructing narratives about being cosmically blocked or fundamentally unsuited for substantial achievement. If this recognition is shifting something in you, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. You're not just subscribing to content, you're aligning with a frequency of conscious reality creation. Then I began examining it through the lens of code. What represents the actual pattern structure? What constitutes the consistent trigger mechanism? And I discovered the root. Every single instance, immediately preceding the dissolution, I would experience a threshold of recognition. The project would attract attention. People would begin discussing it publicly, and that visibility would activate something within my system I'd never consciously registered. A deeply embedded conviction that being perceived equals danger, that attention invites harm, that remaining invisible maintains safety. Once I recognized this as executable code, I could observe it running in real-time protocol. Project generates traction. Visibility crosses threshold. Danger detection subroutine activates. Self-sabotage protocols initialize. Project implodes. Return to protected invisibility. Loop completion. This wasn't mysterious misfortune. This wasn't external interference. This was programming I'd been executing since early development, performing flawlessly, generating the precise reality it was architectured to generate. And the instant I perceived it as programmable code, transformation initiated. Not through extensive therapeutic processing or childhood trauma excavation. Through recognizing it as a modifiable program, and programs can be rewritten. How reality interfaces with your programming. Here's what most people fundamentally misunderstand about how code operates in reality generation. They conceptualize their beliefs, creating their reality through some undefined mystical mechanism. Maintain positive cognition, receive positive manifestation. That's not the operational framework. That's equivalent to believing you can alter computer output through maintaining positive thoughts about the hardware. The computer executes the code it's programmed to execute. If you desire different output, you modify the code structure. Reality operates through identical principles, with one essential distinction. You function as the interface point between consciousness and the quantum probability field. The programming you're executing determines which probabilities collapse from infinite potential into your lived experience, not through magical attraction mechanisms, through measurement, through how your consciousness is calibrated to interact with the informational field underlying physical manifestation. Let me clarify this with something concrete. You enter a social environment, whether a celebration, a professional gathering, a family occasion. Before you exchange a single word with anyone, you're already running code. Social threat scanning protocols, hierarchical positioning algorithms, acceptance probability calculations. This entire process unfolds beneath conscious awareness, but it's actively executing, determining what you register, how you interpret what you register, and how you respond to those interpretations. If your programming is running, "I don't belong in this space," that's not some abstract belief floating through your mental landscape. That's an active software application filtering your perceptual apparatus, collapsing specific probability configurations from the quantum field of potential interactions, constructing the precise social reality that validates "I don't belong in this space." Someone avoids eye contact. Your code categorizes it as rejection. Someone makes eye contact. Your code interprets it as obligation or condescension. The algorithm is architectured to confirm its foundational premise. That's code functionality. It executes toward its programmed conclusion. And here's what makes this recognition so transformative. Once you comprehend the mechanism, you're not magnetically attracting rejection. You're calibrated to measure for rejection. Your programming is configured to collapse rejection probabilities from the field because that's its designed function. And the field responds to measurement configuration, not to wishful desire, not to hopeful thinking, to the actual calibration of your consciousness, which is the Programming, you're executing. Reconfigure the code, you recalibrate the measurement. Recalibrate the measurement, you transform what collapses from probability into actualized experience. This isn't manifestation mythology. This is information theory applied to consciousness, interfacing with quantum fields. The afternoon I witnessed someone rewrite their programming in real time. Approximately 18 months ago, I was collaborating with an individual, I'll call her Sarah, who had been attempting to exit a destructive relationship for 36 months. She'd initiated multiple departure attempts. Each iteration, something would materialize that pulled her back into the pattern. Economic crisis, medical emergency, some circumstance that rendered leaving seemingly impossible. And she'd internalized this repetition as evidence of permanent entrapment. That departure wasn't accessible, that this represented her permanent reality. We began examining it as executable code, not her emotional landscape, not her historical trauma, the actual programming in operation. And we identified something remarkably specific. She was running a core program I'd never encountered articulated with such clarity before. Safety equals familiar suffering. The relationship constituted suffering, but it was known suffering. Departure represented unknown territory. And at a profound unconscious stratum, her system was executing code, declaring unknown territory more threatening than familiar suffering. Once we identified this as programmable code, we could observe it executing across every domain. She'd begin strategizing departure. The strategy would require entering unknown variables. Her safety protocols would classify it as threat. Sabotage subroutines would initialize. Strategy would disintegrate. She'd return to familiar suffering. Code validates its premise. Flawless execution, devastating outcome. But here's what occurred that I continue finding extraordinary. Once she's perceived it as editable code, she didn't require emotional repair or trauma healing or confidence construction. She required code editing, and the edit proved simpler than anticipated. We modified one core variable from safety equals familiar suffering to safety emerges through navigating the unknown. That singular edit. But that edit transformed the entire execution sequence because now, when she'd begin planning departure and encounter unknown elements, her safety protocols didn't classify them as threat. They classified them as safety-building engagement, navigation skill development, learning integration. The sabotage subroutines remained dormant. The plan advanced. She departed the relationship 14 days later, not because she finally accumulated sufficient courage, because she rewrote the programming generating her reality, and reality responded to the new code instantaneously. That's when I comprehended how profoundly few people recognize they possess this access level. They conceptualize their personality as fixed architecture, their patterns as immutable identity, their life circumstances as events happening to them. They don't perceive the code executing, and if you cannot perceive the code, you cannot edit its operation. What unfolds when you begin reading the code? Once you start recognizing reality as programmable information, you begin perceiving the architecture everywhere. You notice the loops, the conditional logic statements, the variables, the functions that execute automatically triggered by specific conditions. And you realize how much of what you interpreted as complex psychology or predetermined destiny or external circumstance is simply code running its programmed sequence. You observe someone locked in destructive relationship cycles, and instead of diagnosing them with abandonment wounds or codependency disorders, you perceive code executing. If partner demonstrates autonomy, trigger abandonment protocol. Execute, controlling behaviors, generate conflict, validate belief about abandonment. Loop. That's not personality pathology. That's a program. You observe someone perpetually stuck in financial limitation, and instead of concluding they need greater work ethic or they're blocked around money, you perceive code. If income surpasses programmed threshold, trigger unworthiness protocol, execute self-sabotage mechanisms, return to familiar economic baseline, validate belief about deserving. Loop. That's not insufficient ambition. That's code maintaining its programmed equilibrium. You observe someone with persistent health challenges that medical science can't decode, and instead of categorizing it as psychosomatic manifestation or unfortunate circumstance, you perceive code. If life trajectory improves, trigger punishment protocol, execute symptom generation, create suffering, validate belief that well-being doesn't sustain. Loop. That's not enigmatic illness. That's code-generating physical reality aligned with its programmed narrative. And here's what transforms everything. Once you perceive the code, you recognize it's not personal identity. It's not inherent flaw. It's not your essential nature. It's software executing. And software can be debugged, modified, rewritten, deleted entirely. You're not fundamentally broken. You're running code that's producing unwanted output. That's a categorically different problem, requiring a categorically different solution. The moment I stopped interpreting my patterns as personality defects and started perceiving them as executable code, my relationship to everything transformed. I wasn't battling myself. I was debugging programs. And debugging represents a learnable skill. It's methodical. It's applicable. It's not about self-improvement or fixing inherent damage. It's about recognizing what code is executing, identifying its origin source, understanding its designed function, and deciding whether you want to continue running it or architect something different. Why most individuals never perceive the code. Here's the challenging aspect about code running in consciousness. It's architectured to remain invisible. The most effective code is code that executes without you recognizing it as code. It simply registers as reality, as this is how existence operates, as this is my identity. The code generates your perception, and your perception validates the code. Closed-loop, self-validating system. Consider it through this framework. If you're running code declaring people are fundamentally untrustworthy, that code will process every interaction through that foundational premise. Someone extends kindness toward you. Your code flags it as manipulation strategy. Someone maintains distance from you. Your code flags it as confirmation of fundamental untrustworthiness. Someone behaves inconsistently. Your code flags it as evidence validating your original premise. The code cannot be disproven because it controls what you perceive as evidence. This explains why most people never perceive their programming. They're too embedded within it. They're observing reality through code, not observing the code itself. And you cannot debug code you cannot perceive. You cannot edit a program you don't recognize is running. So how do you initiate perception? How do you establish sufficient distance to recognize what programming you're executing? The answer proves uncomfortable for most individuals because it requires acknowledging that most of your existence isn't spontaneous, creative, or unique. Most of your existence is repetition. And repetition is how you identify code. If it repeats, it's code. If identical patterns manifest across different circumstances, different individuals, different contexts, that's not unfortunate coincidence. that's a program executing. I began perceiving my code through tracking repetitions. Every instance I noticed identical emotional reactions, identical conflict types, identical justifications, identical excuses. I document it, not to psychologically analyze it, simply to track it. And within several weeks, I possessed a complete map of my programming, the programs running my relational dynamics, the protocols executing my financial decisions, the algorithms generating my health patterns. It was all documented, repeating, predictable, mechanical. And the instant I perceived it as mechanical, I stopped being controlled by it. Because you cannot be controlled by something you recognize as a program. Programs only control you when you mistake them for reality. When you perceive them as code, they're simply code. And code can be modified. Take a moment and comment below with one pattern you've just recognized as code in your own life. What repeats that you've been calling personality but might actually be programming? The 3 programming categories everyone is executing. After working with this framework for years, both within my personal experience and observing countless others, I've recognized that most programming people execute falls into 3 fundamental categories: survival programming, identity programming, narrative programming. Understanding these 3 categories makes debugging your reality substantially more systematic. Survival programming represents the most ancient, deeply embedded code. It's architectured to maintain your existence, but it's typically calibrated to threats that no longer exist in your current reality. If you developed in an environment where visibility equaled danger, you're running code that enforces invisibility even when visibility would serve your evolution. If you developed in scarcity conditions, you're running code that hoards resources even when you're surrounded by abundance. If you developed in chaotic conditions, you're running code that generates crisis even when your life is fundamentally stable. Survival programming doesn't optimize for thriving. It optimizes for surviving in the environment it was originally programmed for. If that environment no longer exists, the code is obsolete. But it continues executing unless you rewrite it. Identity programming is who you've constructed yourself to be. This proves trickier because it registers as essential self, not installed software. But identity is code. It's a collection of definitions, operational rules, and boundaries that determine what behaviors align with you and what behaviors feel incongruent or impossible. If your identity code declares, "I'm not someone who asserts boundaries," you won't assert boundaries, even in situations where boundary assertion would transform everything. If your identity code declares, "I'm not innovative," you won't innovate. Even if you possess ideas demanding expression, identity code proves most insidious because violating it registers as violating your essential nature. But it's simply code, and you can rewrite who you are by rewriting the code defining you. Narrative programming is the meaning-making system your consciousness uses to interpret events. This is the code that transforms raw experience into coherent story, and story determines your subsequent actions. If your narrative code interprets rejection as "I'm fundamentally inadequate," that's different programming than interpreting rejection as "that interaction wasn't aligned." Identical event, different code, different reality generated from that point forward. Narrative programming is powerful because it doesn't simply interpret the past, it programs the future. The meaning you assign becomes the code that executes going forward. Most individuals are running all 3 programming types simultaneously, and the code is frequently contradictory. Your survival programming wants security. Your identity programming wants authenticity. Your narrative programming wants purpose. They're running different programs, generating conflicting outputs, and you experience that as internal confusion or self-sabotage. But it's simply competing code. Once you perceive it through that framework, you can debug the conflicts, rewrite the programs toward alignment, and observe your reality reorganize around the new code. What transformed when I rewrote my primary programming? I'm going to share something deeply personal that might help you recognize how profound this becomes. Throughout most of my existence, I ran code declaring, "Being recognized is dangerous." I have no clear awareness of its original installation point. Likely some developmental experience that encoded as survival programming. But that code governed everything. My intimate relationships, my professional selections, my creative expression. Anything that would generate greater visibility, greater recognition, greater exposure would trigger sabotage protocols. I could observe the code executing, but for an extended period, I didn't comprehend how to rewrite it. I'd attempt affirmations. I'd attempt graduated exposure. I'd attempt cognitive reframing. None of it functioned because I was attempting to override the code through conscious effort. That's not how code operates. Code doesn't respond to what you consciously desire. It executes based on its programming structure. Then I recognized something that transformed everything. Code operates through logic, if-then conditional statements, defined execution pathways. And the logic my code was executing was, if recognition increases, then danger increases. That was the foundational statement. Everything else branched from that core logic. So I didn't need to combat the code. I needed to edit the core logic structure. I modified one statement from, if recognition increases, then danger increases, to if recognition increases, then impact increases. Identical trigger, different logic, different execution. And what unfolded over subsequent months wasn't gradual. It was immediate and systematic. Opportunities that would have activated terror before started registering as obvious pathways. Conversations that would have triggered sabotage felt natural and aligned. Decisions that would have enforced smallness felt fundamentally wrong. The code had reconstructed my reality by reconstructing how I responded to recognition. I'm not sharing this to suggest it's effortless. Rewriting foundational code represents the most profound work you can engage. But I'm sharing it because once you perceive reality as code, you recognize that nothing is permanently fixed. Not your personality, not your circumstances, not your patterns. It's all code, and code can be rewritten. Now, what we're exploring today is the foundational recognition that reality operates as code. But understanding how to systematically rewrite that code, how to shift from unconscious transmission to conscious broadcast, how to move through each layer of resistance that guards the old programming. That's where the real transformation lives. I've laid out the complete framework in Beyond the Frequencies, a quantum guide to consciousness mastery, where I walk you through the 9 master frequencies and the step-by-step practices for debugging your reality at the deepest levels. It's linked in the pinned comment below. The question everyone avoids asking. Here's what most individuals circumvent when they begin perceiving reality as code. If my life is generated by programming, I'm executing, and most of that programming is producing outcomes I don't desire. Where did the programming originate? The answer proves uncomfortable because it implicates everyone who possessed access to your consciousness during formative development. Parents, educators, religious structures, media systems, cultural conditioning, peer dynamics, traumatic experiences, Every input during the years your code was being written became integrated into your programming. And most of those inputs weren't designed to serve your highest evolution. They were designed to serve the systems those individuals were embedded within. Your parents programmed you with code they inherited from their parents. Your educators programmed you with code designed to produce compliant participants in economic systems. Your religious structures programmed you with code designed to preserve hierarchical authority. Your culture programmed you with code designed to maintain existing power configurations. None of this was deliberately malicious. It was simply code propagating, systems reproducing themselves through programming new consciousness vessels. And now you're executing code authored by systems that don't serve your authentic development, wondering why your existence doesn't feel genuinely yours. Because it's not. It's the output of someone else's programming executing within your consciousness. The moment you perceive this reality, you face a fundamental choice. Continue executing the code or initiate the process of auditing every program, identifying what's authentically yours versus what's inherited conditioning, and systematically rewriting the code generating your reality. Most individuals cannot sustain that level of responsibility. It's more comfortable to maintain the narrative that you're a victim of circumstance, or that your personality represents fixed architecture, or that your patterns simply define who you are. Because if reality is code and you're executing the code, then your reality becomes your responsibility. Not your fault, but your responsibility. And most individuals would prefer remaining controlled by invisible code than accepting responsibility for rewriting it. But here's what unfolds if you embrace that responsibility. Nothing controls you again. Not your historical conditioning, not your accumulated programming, not other people's expectations, not your own fear structures, because you perceive it all as code. And code only possesses power when you don't perceive it. Once you perceive it, it's simply information. And information can be transformed. How to begin perceiving your code right now. If you're still engaged with this, something within you recognizes the truth resonance of what I'm articulating. You can sense the code executing. You've noticed the loops. You've observed the patterns recycling. You've questioned why you continue executing actions you don't consciously desire, even though you intellectually know better. Here's how you initiate making the invisible visible. For the next 7 days, track your automatic responses, not your conscious thoughts. Your automatic responses, the immediate reaction before your thinking mind generates interpretation. Someone delivers criticism. What happens somatically before your cognitive mind produces a response? That's code executing. You view your financial balance. What's the immediate sensation before you rationalize it? That's code. You contemplate a goal you've been avoiding. What emerges before you construct justification for avoidance? That's code. Document these observations. Don't analyze them. Don't attempt to fix them. Simply document them. You're mapping the code. And once you possess the map, you can initiate debugging, seek patterns. If identical responses manifest across different triggers, that's foundational programming. If you consistently feel diminished around authority structures, that's authority code. If you consistently sabotage immediately before breakthrough, that's success threat code. If you consistently select partners who are emotionally unavailable, that's intimacy avoidance code. The pattern reveals what program is executing. Once you identify the program, you can initiate asking the debugging questions. What's this code designed to accomplish? What threat is it protecting me from? When was this code originally installed? Does that threat still exist in current reality? Is this code serving my evolution now, or is it obsolete survival programming generating unwanted outcomes? And then arrives the most transformative question. If I could rewrite this code, what would I architect instead? That question is where everything transforms. Because the moment you recognize you can rewrite the code, you're no longer at its mercy. You become the architect, not simply the end user. And reality responds to new code immediately. The hidden layer most people miss. Now here's something that took me years to fully comprehend about how code operates in consciousness. There's a layer beneath the code most people can see, a meta layer that determines whether you can even perceive the code in the first place. I call it permission code. It's the programming that governs whether you're allowed to see the programming. Think about this carefully. If you were designing a control system, wouldn't you want to include code that prevents people from examining the control system? That's exactly what exists in most people's consciousness. There's code running that says, don't look at the code. The patterns aren't patterns. This is just who you are. Questioning this is dangerous. This permission code is why some people can read everything I'm sharing here and feel nothing shift. Their permission code won't allow them to perceive what I'm pointing to. I discovered my own permission code completely by accident. I was working with someone who kept saying, I understand intellectually what you're saying, but I can't see it in my own life. And I realized, that's not an intellectual problem, that's permission code. She had programming that said, deep examination of yourself is selfish, and people who analyze themselves too much become paralyzed. So every time she got close to perceiving her actual code, this meta layer would activate and shut down the perception. Once we identified that permission code and rewrote it to self-examination is self-responsibility, and understanding your patterns is how you free yourself, suddenly she could see everything. The code that had been running her entire life became visible within days. It wasn't that she needed more information. She needed permission to see the information that was already there. This is why I'm emphasizing this now before we go deeper. Check your own permission code. Is there something in you resisting what I'm sharing? Not intellectually disagreeing, but viscerally resisting? That resistance might be permission code protecting other code from examination. And if you can recognize that resistance as code, you can rewrite it. You can give yourself permission to see what's been invisible. The quantum mechanics nobody talks about. Let me share something about quantum mechanics that most spiritual teachers skip over because it's uncomfortable. The observer effect, the phenomenon where observation collapses probability into actuality, doesn't care about your intentions. It doesn't care if you're a good person. It doesn't care if you're trying hard or if you deserve better. It responds to the configuration of consciousness doing the observing. And that configuration is your code. This is where a lot of manifestation teaching creates suffering. People are told to raise their vibration or think positive or feel abundant. But if the underlying code is running scarcity programming, those surface-level techniques won't change what you're measuring for in the quantum field. It's like trying to change what a radio receives by thinking happy thoughts at it, while leaving it tuned to the same frequency. The code determines the frequency. The frequency determines what you collapse from the field. I watched this play out with someone who'd been doing affirmations for financial abundance for 3 years, with 0 results. She couldn't understand why it wasn't working. She was saying the words, visualizing the outcomes, feeling the feelings, doing everything the teachers told her to do. But when we examined her actual code, we found something running beneath all of that. Code that said money changes people, wealth creates distance from loved ones. Financial success means I'll become someone I don't recognize. Her affirmations were surface software. Her actual code was running a completely different program. The moment we rewrote that code, not through more affirmations, but by literally rewriting the logic from money changes people negatively to resources amplify who you already are, her financial reality began shifting. Not because the universe finally heard her affirmations, because her consciousness was now calibrated to collapse different probabilities from the field. This is the piece most people miss. You can't hack quantum mechanics with surface techniques while running contradictory code. The field responds to the actual programming, not to the conscious override attempts. You have to go to the code level. You have to rewrite the foundational logic. That's where the power is. Why most code rewrites fail and how to make them permanent. I need to be completely honest with you about something. Most people who try to rewrite their code fail, not because it's impossible, but because they approach it like changing their mind instead of changing their programming. And there's a massive difference between those two things. Changing your mind is saying, I'm going to think differently about this. Changing your programming is altering the logic structure that generates your thoughts in the first place. One is surface level. The other is foundational. One is temporary. The other is permanent. Here's how most code rewrite attempts fail. Someone recognizes they're running unworthiness code. They decide to think more worthy thoughts. For a few days or weeks, they maintain that conscious override. It feels good. It feels like progress. Then something happens that triggers the old code. Some rejection or failure or criticism, and the original programming reasserts itself with even more force than before. And they conclude that changing is impossible, that this is just who they are. But that's not what happened. What happened is they tried to override the code instead of rewriting it. The original code was still there, still running, just temporarily suppressed by conscious effort. And the moment conscious effort relaxed, the code executed normally. Permanent code rewrites require something different. They require you to identify the core logic statement, understand why that logic made sense when it was installed, recognize that the conditions that necessitated that logic no longer exist, and then write new logic that serves your current reality. It's not a mental exercise. It's actual reprogramming. Let me give you an example. I had code running that said, expressing needs pushes people away. That logic made perfect sense in my childhood environment, where expressing needs actually did create distance and punishment. The code was accurate for that reality, but I was no longer in that reality. I was an adult in relationships with people who actually wanted to know what I needed. But the code kept running because code doesn't update automatically based on new circumstances. It runs until you rewrite it. So I didn't just try to think different thoughts. I went to the foundational logic. I acknowledged that expressing needs pushes people away was true in the environment where it was installed. I recognized that environment no longer exists. I wrote new logic. Expressing needs creates intimacy with people who are capable of intimacy. That's a different program, different logic, different execution, different reality. And here's what made it permanent. I didn't just write the new code once. I reinforced it every time the old code tried to execute. When I'd feel the impulse to hide a need, I'd recognize it as old code attempting to run, and I'd consciously execute the new code instead. Within weeks, the new code became automatic. The old code stopped attempting to execute because it was no longer being reinforced. That's how you make code rewrites permanent. You don't just write new code. You consistently execute new code until it becomes your default programming. It's repetition. It's practice. It's choosing the new execution, even when the old code feels safer. That's the work, and it works. The part that sounds impossible until you directly experience it. I'm going to articulate something that will sound impossible if you haven't directly experienced it. But that becomes self-evident once you begin working with code consciously. Reality reorganizes around your rewritten code faster than conventional logic suggests it should. When I rewrote my recognition code, I didn't simply alter my internal experience. External circumstances reorganized. Opportunities materialized that hadn't existed the previous week. Individuals reached out with proposals that aligned perfectly with the new code. Obstacles that had been immovable dissolved without effort. It wasn't gradual. It was systematic and immediate. And I've observed this unfold with dozens of individuals once they begin rewriting foundational code. Not occasionally, consistently. Reality responds to code modifications in real time because reality is information responding to consciousness calibrated differently. You're not waiting for the universe to register that you've changed. You're collapsing different probabilities from the quantum field because your measurement apparatus, your consciousness, is calibrated differently. This is where most manifestation frameworks fundamentally fail. They instruct you to think different thoughts or cultivate different emotions and wait for reality to eventually catch up. But thoughts and emotions aren't code. They're outputs of code. Modifying outputs doesn't modify the program. You must modify the code itself. And when you do, the outputs transform automatically, and reality responds to new outputs by reorganizing to match. I recognize how this sounds. I recognize it contradicts the model most individuals maintain about how reality operates. But ask yourself this: have you ever experienced a profound internal shift, a genuine transformation in how you perceive yourself or what you believe is accessible? And notice that your external circumstances transformed rapidly following that shift. That wasn't coincidence. That was reality responding to rewritten code. You simply didn't recognize you were rewriting code. You thought you were healing or developing or evolving, and perhaps you were. But at the mechanical level, what occurred was code execution transformed and reality reorganized around the new execution. Once you comprehend that mechanism, you can work with it deliberately. You can identify the code generating unwanted reality, rewrite it systematically, and observe reality reorganize. Not through mystical mechanisms, through understanding how consciousness and information interface to generate experience. What nobody reveals about freedom. Here's what they don't reveal about perceiving reality as code. Freedom isn't what you conceptualize it to be. Most individuals conceptualize freedom as having zero constraints, zero limitations, zero code whatsoever. Pure spontaneity and unrestricted choice. But that's not how consciousness operates. Consciousness requires structure to function coherently. It requires code to generate coherent experience. The freedom that emerges from perceiving reality as code isn't freedom from code. It's freedom to select what code you execute. And that's a categorically different kind of freedom. You'll always be executing code. The question is whether you're executing code you inherited unconsciously or code you authored deliberately. Whether the programs executing in your consciousness are serving someone else's agenda or serving your authentic development. When I articulate nothing controls you once you perceive reality as code, I don't mean you become uncontrollable or chaotic. I mean you're no longer controlled by code you cannot perceive. You're no longer at the mercy of programs you didn't recognize were running. You're no longer generating a reality you don't desire because you're executing someone else's software. You become the author of the code. And that authorship is what freedom actually represents, not absence of structure, conscious selection of structure. And here's the peculiar thing I've observed. The more conscious you become of the code you're executing, the simpler the code becomes. You stop running hundreds of competing programs. You begin running several foundational principles that generate everything else. And existence becomes less chaotic, not more. Because coherent code generates coherent reality. The moment everything clicks into place, there's a specific moment in this process that I want to prepare you for. Because when it happens, it can be disorienting. It's the moment when you suddenly perceive all of reality as code simultaneously, not intellectually, experientially. Everything you look at, every interaction you have, every thought that moves through your consciousness, you perceive it as executable code running in real time. The first time this happened to me, I was having a conversation with my partner about something completely mundane, what to have for dinner. And suddenly I could see the code executing in both of us. I could see my code running defer to her preferences to maintain harmony. And I could see her code running wait for him to express what he wants first. We were both running code that was designed to prevent conflict, but the code was actually creating a different kind of conflict, a lack of genuine connection. We were executing compatibility protocols instead of having an authentic exchange. And once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. I started perceiving code everywhere. In the grocery store, watching people's shopping code execute. In traffic, observing defensive driving code and aggressive driving code, creating predictable patterns. In social media, seeing validation-seeking code and attention avoidance code running in endless loops. The entire world revealed itself as code executing. This can be overwhelming at first. Because once you see it, you realize how mechanical most of human behavior actually is, how predictable, how programmed, and there's a grief that comes with that recognition. The grief of realizing that what you thought was spontaneous human interaction is mostly just programs interfacing with other programs. But here's what comes after that grief: liberation. Because if it's all code, and you can see the code, and you know how to rewrite code, then you have access to something most people never touch. You have access to the source level of reality generation. You're not just living life, you're programming life. And the disorientation transforms into clarity. The overwhelm becomes precision. You start seeing exactly where to intervene, exactly what code needs rewriting, exactly how to generate different outcomes. The world doesn't become less magical. It becomes more magical because you understand the mechanism of the magic, the collective code, and why your rewrite matters beyond you. Here's something that's going to sound strange until you experience it directly. When you rewrite your code, you're not just changing your individual reality. You're altering the collective code that generates shared reality. Because consciousness isn't actually separate. That's an illusion the code creates. At the foundational level, we're all interfacing with the same quantum field, all collapsing probabilities from the same infinite potential. When you rewrite code from scarcity to abundance, you're not just changing what you personally experience. You're changing what's available in the field for others to collapse. When you rewrite code from fear to trust, you're not just transforming your internal state, you're altering the probability distribution of trust-based realities available in the collective field. This is why individual transformation is never actually individual. Every code rewrite ripples. Every consciousness that debugs its programming makes it easier for other consciousnesses to debug theirs. Every person who breaks a generational pattern is breaking that pattern not just for themselves, but for everyone connected to that pattern in the field. I've watched this happen in ways that defy conventional explanation. I rewrote my visibility code, and within weeks, 3 people I hadn't spoken to in years reached out to tell me they'd suddenly felt compelled to start sharing their work more publicly. They had no knowledge of my code rewrite, but we were connected in the field, and my rewrite created a resonance that activated something in them. This isn't mystical thinking. This is how information propagates through interconnected systems. When one node in a network updates its code, that update affects the entire network. You are a node in the network of consciousness. Your code rewrite sends signals through the field, and other nodes receive those signals and begin updating their own code in response. This is why your transformation matters beyond just you. This is why doing this work is not selfish. This is why debugging your programming is one of the most generous things you can do. Because you're not just freeing yourself, you're creating pathways of freedom in the collective code that others can follow. If what you've discovered here is activating something profound, share this video with someone who's ready to see beyond the surface of their reality. When you transmit this understanding to another consciousness, you're not just helping them, you're reinforcing your own code rewrite and accelerating the collective shift toward awakened awareness. That energetic exchange amplifies both realities. The questions you must answer. I'm going to conclude with some questions, not rhetorical questions. Actual questions that, if you answer with complete honesty, will begin revealing the code you're executing. What pattern in your existence repeats regardless of what you attempt to change it? That's code. What's the code accomplishing? What's it designed to protect you from? Is that protection still necessary in current reality? What do you desire that you consistently avoid choosing? There's code executing that makes avoidance register as safer than choice. What's the logic of that code? If choosing equals danger, what danger is the code predicting? What do you believe about yourself that you've never questioned? That belief is identity code. It's generating every decision you make from that identity. If you rewrote that code, what would you author? Who would you become if that program wasn't executing? What meaning do you assign to failure, rejection, loss, success, recognition, intimacy? That meaning is code, determining your subsequent actions every time you encounter those experiences. If you transform the meaning, how would your behavior transform? How would your reality transform? Drop a comment below with the single most powerful code rewrite you're committing to right now. Name the old logic and the new logic you're installing. These aren't comfortable questions. They require examining the code most individuals spend their existence avoiding. But if you answer them with complete honesty, you'll begin perceiving the structure generating your reality. And once you perceive the structure, you can transform it. Reality is code. Your existence is the output of code you're executing. Most of that code is invisible, inherited, obsolete, serving systems that don't serve you. But code can be perceived. Code can be debugged. Code can be rewritten. And once you begin rewriting your code consciously, nothing controls you again. Not your history, not your programming, not your circumstances, because you perceive it all as information. And information is what you make it. The question is, are you prepared to perceive the code? Or would you prefer continuing to believe your reality is happening to you instead of being generated by you? Your answer to that question will determine everything that unfolds next. Once you've grasped that reality operates as programmable code, the next essential recognition is understanding what happens when you stop forcing outcomes and allow the field to respond to your new calibration. Because rewriting your code is only half the equation. The other half is learning to release attachment to how that code manifests, which is precisely what we explore in the next video about why when you stop needing, you start attracting. That shift from desperate seeking to magnetic allowing is where your rewritten code finally executes without interference.